Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, Kaki Lee, a mindset coach and healer who's on a mission to share the love and wisdom of inspiring women from around the world who have gone through adversity and turned their pain into purpose. Today, I am excited to share the love and wisdom of fellow Aussie Jennifer Wright, who is a social justice activist, speaker, and writer. She has also just released her book, Redeem Her Heart, and she's joining me from Melbourne. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, Jennifer. I'm really excited to dive into your journey. But before we do that, I always like to ask my guests this question. I'd love you to share with us what is your definition of an awakened feminine?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And again, I'm so excited to be here and share my journey, a little bit of my journey with you. Awakened feminine, it seems a bit of a trend at the moment, doesn't it? Like a bit of and not in a negative way, in a beautiful way. I'm seeing so many women awakening to their power. And that to me is really what it's about. It's about, just being not just only awakening to yourself, but just awakening, just being aware. I think awareness is a big word that comes up for me when I think about awakening, but also just really stepping into your truth and honoring that in every facet of your life. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It is so much about women rising, right? The whole awareness, the
Yeah.
power, knowing who they really are. So, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. That's such a beautiful definition. So, Jennifer, let's dive into your journey. I know you were entrepreneur and you had your own, coaching and education consultancy before, your current path. Can you share with us your journey from what you were doing before to what you're
Yeah.
doing now, including any like experiences of spiritual awakening or aha moments that led you down this path?
Yeah, fantastic. I was a full-time stay-at-home mum for 15 years, and I had a lot of challenging seasons, and one of them was a car accident. And so during rehabilitation, a big part of my healing and rehab was for me to try something different or new that I hadn't done pre-accident. And so that kind of, you know, um, sometimes I say I tripped and fell into entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
because it was a totally new world for me. And the online space, I wasn't even on social media, believe it or not. You know, I was just so engrossed in my world of being a full-time stay-at-home mum. And it's something I'm very passionate about and still love. And yeah, I thought, I'm going to try starting a business. It was literally like I went to sleep and I woke up and I had this idea.
Yeah.
And when I shared that with my husband and when I shared it with my team of rehab specialists, they were thrilled, but my husband was kind of like, well, what are you going to do? Kind of because you'd been a full-time stay-at-home mom, and I thought to myself, that's a great question. What am I going to do? Like zero business experience or, qualifications and that. But I kind of then did this full list of what am I good at, what can I do, and what came up for me was storytelling. Like I'm a really great storyteller, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm just going to own that one.
Yeah.
And it just, I love story. I love, sharing stories with others, and so it just started with that. Okay, I'm going to just share my story with everyone, and it kind of all these ideas started to develop from that, and kind of what I had shared with my own children and their healing journey, and that's kind of how the education consultancy business came with alternative methods and ways of healing, that wasn't conventional.
Hmm.
And so I kind of shared that part of this of my story, and that became the education consultancy. And then I had this other side, which was storytelling, and I'm really passionate about working with young people as well. And so it started off with me not only sharing my story, but then encouraging and empowering young people to share their own. And that's kind of how it developed. But in the process, there were so many challenges, mostly around my own personal beliefs around I'm just a mum. I have zero qualifications. I have no business experience. So there was a lot of that, a lot of stripping back all my own stories and also my religious beliefs as well. There was a lot of that that came through and kept me stuck
Yeah.
actually for a long, long time. And, like people were like, show up and just be yourself and all that kind of stuff. That was really hard for me. Like I thought I am being myself, but then I wasn't. There was a lot of, comparing and just being in the online world, and I was just overwhelmed, like sensory overwhelm and just, you know, and then, just a lot of distrust in myself. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was kind of the challenges I think I dealt with the whole way. But in the beginning, navigating the whole mum life and entrepreneurial life and how to balance that,
Yeah.
which we know is a myth anyway. So
Yeah, there is not really any balance.
yeah.
It's really more prioritizing, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that's kind of how it all came about. And it
Yeah.
was so messy. It was such a messy, glorious journey, all at the same time.
Yeah, and I love it because it's those messy, glorious journeys that teach us the most about ourselves and the world around
Mm,
us, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So I want to ask you, so you were saying you were obviously navigating the online world, which is, what a lot of new entrepreneurs will do. So how did you how did you kind of get over that comparison with other people and really stepping into that business owner? Like what were the things that you had to overcome?
Mm. I thought the first thing to do would be to enlist some expert advice. So I signed up to a whole heap of business masterminds, coaching programs. Um, as you do in the first year, I think I spent thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get to from A to B,
Yeah.
and I can see you nodding and smiling because I know that you so get that journey, right? Like you
Yeah.
so get where, you're a newbie and you just think, oh, well, everyone who's an expert would know what I need to do. And so there was a lot of that that I first started off with. And then I found myself even more confused than ever.
Story of my life.
Um, yeah. And then I just felt like it was so much noise, and I just needed to then tap out of all that noise and really come back to myself and my own rhythms and what I knew, because I really wasn't honoring myself. I really wasn't trusting myself that I actually did know what I wanted to do and how I wanted to show up in the world and how I wanted to do that. And I think the more I did that, the more I kind of tuned in and tuned out all the noise, the more I was able to show up more, really being myself. But it was so noisy and
Yeah.
really loud, and it was really hard to pull myself away and then, come out because I felt like I'd be missing out. I felt that I would, be behind, the game. And so I always felt like I was on this catch up mode as well.
Yeah.
But I did find like the more I switched off and really switched into, and some may say that's a little bit cliche, but that's really what really worked, and really just searching my own heart, really searching my own heart and honoring what my heart's voice was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. And I think it's a journey that you have to get to actually go, I need to tune out some of the noise because same with you, for me at the beginning, it was like, oh, let's do all the courses there are available. And then you get so confused. But as you're saying, as you step into your power, your truth, and what works for you, what doesn't work for you, then you can still do all the courses because you really have to keep learning as an entrepreneur, but
Yeah. Yeah.
choosing the bits that actually resonate and work for you rather than
Mm.
getting all stressed out because you're supposed to do everything that they teach you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. You just summed that perfectly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jennifer, I want to ask you. So, that was your pre-social activist writer speaker life. So, what happened, and then how did you move into this new career path?
Yeah, funny story actually. So, I began to do really well in my education consultancy as well as my storytelling platform. My workshops were selling out, tickets were selling out, and you just think, I've made it, right? Like, yes, I'm finally here. You've worked so hard to get to the space. And then, um, I like to be led by spirit or God, that's my values and my beliefs. And I felt this really strong voice say, I want you to let it all go. And I was like, I ignored it for several days, or it could have even been weeks. I ignored it because, obviously I felt like I was at this point, and I didn't want to let it go. I just didn't want to let it go. And I struggled with this again, these very strong impressions, these very strong, like this guidance was just saying it's time. And I wouldn't let it go. I started seeing all these caterpillars everywhere. I kid you not, caterpillars. And I was waking up, it was literally like a caterpillar dangling in front of my
What?
eye. I don't know how that was happening. It was freaky. On my windows, I was washing the dishes and it'll be there on the windowsill. And I was like, I can't see, I'm not listening, kind of thing. And I stopped then to just really say, okay, what is nature saying to me? What is these caterpillars saying to me? And then it was almost like, well, we know, right, that a caterpillar, goes into a season of rest and becomes a moth or a butterfly. And that really spoke volumes to me. It really was saying to me, it's time for you to rest and almost this go through this metamorphosis journey. But I still didn't want to let go. But eventually, I did listen because everything was just so evident around me. And so I thought, okay, God knows best. God knows what I need, and I'm going to
Mm.
trust that. And my body also was also saying it was time. But sometimes your mind, is always saying differently. But once I did trust that and made that decision, I felt really great and deep peace, and I knew that it was the right thing to do. So I did. And I thought it was going to be a time of rest, and I was looking forward to having a rest and having a break. And I was telling my children, and oh, don't worry, mum's going to be here a little bit more. I'm going to be a lot more present because that. And I think it was about a 2-3 week break, and then obviously this whole season of coronavirus hit, and just a lot of things that I'm really passionate about in terms of religious freedom and medical freedom came to the forefront. And I couldn't help but begin to lend my voice speaking about that and sharing about that and just asking a lot of questions around that space. And before you knew it, I was on the front line and joined up an amazing global organization movement called Freedom Keepers. And, and then there I was, sharing online, and also, sharing, in the political arena as well, a little bit about that, asking questions, and just sharing, different viewpoints with them. And in the journey as well, there was a bit of space and an opportunity for me to start writing my story. And so here we are. That's how it all came about.
I love that. And so, with yours, I just want to touch a bit. There's a few questions that popped into my head, so I'm going to ask them in whatever order comes through. So, with your book, is it around your journey from before, or is it including this journey with going into being this freedom keeper?
Yeah, it starts from birth actually.
Oh,
I kind of went right back.
yeah,
And it's not a timeline, it's really about seasons, different life seasons that I've experienced, but the most important life seasons. And starting from birth, and it's really a story about the fight. You almost come into this world fighting, and I feel like I'm going to go out fighting the same way. And just that's a common theme that's interwoven within the story. I do speak about my entrepreneurial season.
yeah,
I don't really speak a lot about the current season I'm in. I speak a lot in seasons, which is, I look at seasons in terms of time and change and development and maturity. So,
yeah,
yeah, that's when people go, "What are you talking about in seasons?" Because I really believe that's how life happens, not just for the weather, but also I share a lot of really challenging and really difficult seasons that I went through in life. And um, really, the journey is really about that, about sharing that part. And then I do share the entrepreneurial journey, but not
yeah,
this current season. I thought about sharing it, but I thought I'd leave that for my next book.
yeah. Awesome.
I
Hey,
can
that's
go out
perfect.
there. Yeah,
And I love that you work in seasons because I think a lot of people don't understand that we as human beings kind of work in seasons as well. We have the ebbs and flows of life. Sometimes we're taking action and, go, go, go. And then,
yeah,
like yourself, going through that period where you're like, oh, I need to pull back and rest and reflect and all those things. And it's having those seasons which allows you to go to the next chapter of your life,
yeah.
and really transforming into that new no, well that new person that
Mm,
for that season. So I love that you work in seasons. So the other question that came through, I know you talked about this a little bit earlier around how your religious beliefs really held you back, or you had a lot of limiting beliefs, because of how you were brought up with religion. So how did you work through that? Because I know with people that have been brought up in a particular religion, you get taught certain things, and when you step into this new space, it's like, well, that's completely not aligned. So, what did you have to do, and how did you then find God again? Because you obviously would have gone, okay, great, this isn't working. I don't know which
yeah,
side to believe. Those kind of things.
yeah, yeah. Great question. Um, yeah, my journey is a little bit tricky, been challenging around that. Like you said, with those stories and those limiting beliefs that kept coming up. And first of all, I really had to confront them head on, and what I went through actually gave me the opportunity to do that. So, for example, with the car accident and having a really major injury, I was left to really be confronted with myself and God and ask him the really hard questions. I started to ask him what I began to see during every single crisis I went through. Like, you're going to be blown away when you read the book. Like, seriously, already people are
I'm
saying to me,
excited.
"Did you really go through that?" Like, it's crazy. Like, even writing it, I'm also in disbelief myself. But every single crisis I went to became an opportunity to really strip away the distorted beliefs that I had around religion, and really specifically around who God is. And I started to really begin to see a huge contrast between religious system and actually who God is. Like, God is not religion. And even me saying that, like, I wouldn't have been able to sit here over a year ago and say that, because yes, they are, interwoven, but I began to really see what true faith is versus what churchianity is. That's how I call it,
Yeah.
like, versus churchianity, religion, and the system that I just feel have got it totally wrong around um, how he really wants us to live and love him and his in our faith. And I think what really taught me that was my really difficult circumstances and crisis that just I think it wasn't really anything that I did. It was really, when people say, recently I've come to hear people say, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, and I didn't really understand what that meant. And I also felt like it was kind of a bit of a cop out kind of thing as well at times when people would say that. But it really is that. It really is. These seasons it's really for your greater good. And even though you don't see it at the time, and it kind of just naturally, organically did that as I evolved and as I grew, as I came through each season. And the reason why I do reframe my challenges as seasons, because seasons do come and go, and so you're not always going to be in that crisis mode, in that, in those really hard circumstances. And so, yeah, like just the whole healing around that, it was a big healing journey, and then again a huge awakening to then feel, I speak a lot about that betrayal, because I think that's the word I deeply resonate with in regards to pre-religion and post-faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, just almost, and then having to process all of that, grieve who you used to be, and being okay to just step into now who you are and who God really created to be, you to be. And that was only because he allowed me to really see him. And so that's almost the core of my book,
Yeah.
really, is just letting go of, also the cultural expectation around that, the societal expectation around that, and just going back purely to the source. And
Yeah.
so that's really where I'm at. Yeah.
So beautiful. Like that's such a beautiful, beautiful story and journey. And yeah, it's I think for myself, I've I've not been of any religion. If I've always been interested in all these different religions, and when I had my awakening, it was like, wow, it is not one religion. It's just God is for everywhere and for everyone, and it's
Yeah.
not a particular teaching or anything. It's and God is within us as well. So I
Yeah.
love that. And also you're the second guest that I've had who's been talking about this, everything happens for you and not to you, which is something that I've learned recently as well, which I find really fascinating. I was like, maybe you're the second. Yeah, I need to be reminded of that because I was like, oh, okay, I just learned that, and then I guess came
Yeah.
on and she said that, and now you said that to me as well. So I love the
Maybe that's a
synchronicities.
yeah, maybe that's a caterpillar moment for you.
Yeah. I love it. Um, so, and Jennifer, the other thing I wanted to ask you that was you were saying that you had this voice telling you to let go, and obviously you were resisting it every possible way you could. But um, what really was the catalyst that made you decide? I mean, you were seeing caterpillars and everything. What was the
Yeah.
catalyst that really made you go, okay, well, I better listen to this now?
Yeah, I think it was probably experience. I often say, to many people that I share my story, I'm a really slow learner. And that might also be interpreted as very stubborn as
Yeah,
well. And I, always say as well, like, I just want people to just tell me. If they just straight up tell me, I would listen,
yeah,
and I would say to God as well, like, you didn't have to get a hammer and whack it on my head. You just could have just told me. I would have listened,
yeah.
and my mum laughs when I say that, because she's like, no, you wouldn't listen. So I think just from experience, just that nagging feeling, like that was something I needed to, maybe pay attention and listen to. So, yeah, I think it was just that, it was just, from past experiences,
Yeah.
that when I don't listen, not that bad things happen to you, but you learn the hard way, and it would be nice to just not have to learn things so hard
Yeah.
all the time.
I love that. So, so Jennifer, I wanted you to share with us, right now in this current, season of your life, what is your personal mission right now?
Yeah, my personal mission right now is to share my story. That's one of my big things, and something, because it's about deep connection for me, deep connection not only to yourself but to others. And I believe story has the power to do that like no other.
Yeah.
And that's why I love story. Like, it has, just that deeper connection with people. And I love that. Like, I love deep connection and I want to know others in relationship. That's probably still a big personal mission of mine, is to share my story. But also, just to bring the faith conversation to the forefront. Again, speak a lot about my personal faith with God, and just, that you can really break down strongholds. So many of us go through some really challenging seasons in our life, and I want us to know there's always hope no matter what we go through. And yeah, so I want to share a lot more of that, share a lot more about, because I have spent, the last 10 years sharing my story, and also like a lot of the pain and the grief side. But I want to kind of, in 2021, begin to share a light on amplifying the victories and the hope that you can have, and kind of the newness around that.
Yeah.
I'm feeling that's where my heart wants to go.
Yeah.
And yeah, just more joy, more courage. And that's kind of how I want to show up
Yeah.
in this next season. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love your mission and I'm looking forward to
Thank
see
you.
how it all unfolds for you. So, Jennifer, I love for you to share more of your love and wisdom with us. So, what was the experience that you've been through that you found the most challenging, but actually led to your biggest breakthrough?
Yeah. I'd have to say the most challenging was dealing with grief. I think around losing my father, who passed away, who was my biggest superhero. And I never had the opportunity to really grieve him, based again on a really false belief that I had, that if you grieve, or if you have pain, that you're not faithful enough, or that means you don't believe enough in God. So there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
And then losing my daughter, I think, as well. Um, yeah, so I'll just say grief,
Oh,
dealing
yeah.
with grief.
Yeah.
And then also losing my health. So there's a lot of season of loss there, and not really having the opportunity to grieve. And I
Yeah.
think that would probably have been the biggest challenge for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And yeah. And then it's this process of learning to grieve and then yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, as well. Oh, beautiful. Jennifer, I know you've gone through, big journeys with lots of different things that have happened in your different seasons. Can you share with us some of the tools or the teachers that were really helpful for your healing process?
Yeah, sure. Prayer. Prayer was a really huge one for me. I had been taught to grow up that prayer meant asking for things. If you're going through something or something's wrong, you just send up a prayer to God, but you don't really expect it to be answered.
Yeah.
You just, it just became, for me, almost like this practice that had no meaning. So I have some really core spiritual rhythms that I developed over the years, and prayer is one of them. I call them rhythms because that it resonates with me. When you're in your flow, when you're in your rhythm, and so without my rhythms, I feel misaligned and out of flow. So definitely, prayer was a big one for me, and rest. Um, Lots of seasonal rest period, and really partnering with rest more, because I felt that my heart, I'm a go-getter. Like, I love to take lots of risks, and I felt that the more I took risks, the more I needed to rest. But there was just this huge imbalance of um, risking, and then becoming overwhelmed, burnt out, fatigued. And then I just started partnering with rest a lot more. So rest could look like many different things, which also can incorporate prayer, but just not just sleep. Spending a lot of time in movement, really gentle body embodiment is a practice that I, learnt as well over these last few years. So I do a lot of that. And a lot of that helps me to tap into story. Again, everything is story for me. So just really uncovering a lot of those unhelpful story narratives and patterns really helped me to overcome a lot of those challenges I was having. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. You said rest. I mean, prayer is amazing, but rest is such a thing that I think in our society we're conditioned to think rest is not good. If you rest,
Mm,
then you're not a go-getter.
relate.
If you rest, you're not going to get anything done. It's this constant conditioning of your head that if you rest, everything, you're not going to achieve what you want. But I found myself recently that you
Yeah.
need that rest, and that rest
Yeah.
actually helps you to get more and do more, because when
Yeah.
you're, as you're saying, burnt out, overwhelmed, everything else, you're not going to get anything done and you're going to be worse
Yeah.
off. But allowing yourself that rest, and I love that you said it's not just sleeping, it could be your but move what was it, movement,
Body
embodiment,
movement.
body,
Yeah.
yeah, what embodiment, movement. It could be just whatever feels good, that makes you feel rejuvenated. And I think
Mm.
it's so important to remind people of that. So thank you, that's really, really helpful tools. So Jennifer, I'm an avid reader, and I think you mentioned that you are one as well. So do you have any books which really made a big impact on your life?
Yeah, I'd have to say it's a Big Magic. Now I can't remember because I read that book years ago. I
Yeah.
read that book, a couple of years back. That was a massive one because I've only really read Christian books. I'm going to be honest,
Yeah.
and religious books. So that was a um, Big Magic was, it just showed me this whole nother world, to, yeah, just this whole other spirituality, I think, because I was a little bit on that awakening journey. And as part of my healing journey, I was looking at lots of different ways to heal, and that was kind of part of it. So I kind of explored that a little bit. And so reading, books from Elizabeth Gilbert was amazing. And Brene Brown, we can't go past her.
Yeah.
And, um, her courage to share vulnerability and show up. So, those are probably the books that I have really loved in this season, but also I have a lot of Christian authors that I love to read and buy their books as well. And
Yeah.
one of them is called The Bondage Breaker, and that was from, I forget his name now, Tim Anderson, and that was really huge. Again, from breaking chains and changing your story narratives around, your Christian and religious beliefs. So that was kind of what that one was about. So
Yeah. Beautiful.
yeah, but I do have a whole list that I'm still going through as well, as I'm sure for many people around
Yeah,
me.
my
Yeah,
list is so long, and I'm like,
yeah,
I need to read this book, but then, yeah, there's just
yeah,
so many before that particular book, and yeah, and I love Elizabeth Gilbert and Brene Brown, so definitely for me, they're highly recommended as well.
yeah, yeah.
So, Jennifer, if you could time travel and go back to a younger version of yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
I would tell myself that you are totally okay the way you are, and I sometimes when I say these words, sometimes you do feel like, well, everyone's saying that, but I guess when it's a personal journey, it really is. I'd really tell myself to just keep showing up as you are, like don't change a thing.
Yeah.
And my whole journey is really about, I guess for many, I'm sure you can relate as well, is really about trying to change yourself to be accepted in the world, and to change yourself to be a certain way, and to talk and be, show up a certain way, because you're just too much for people, and it's okay to be too much, and it's okay to just be who you are.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change a thing about you, my younger self, and I'm sorry that I did.
Yeah.
If anything, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
love that. It's really not dimming your light to fit in with what
yeah,
society expects of you. And
yeah,
yeah, and again, we get taught from a young age to fit in and be what everyone tells us to be. So that's beautiful advice. And as you say, until
yeah,
you've gone through
compare,
the journey, you
compare.
don't really realize that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely.
Thank you. So, Jen, I want to know, I mean, this year there's been a lot of changes, and I'm really glad that 2021's around the corner. All saying that
Yeah,
I had a really good 2020, but
same.
um,
Me too.
uh, a lot of change, a lot of people starting their awakening journey or finding that they need to really change their lives to really keep going with how the world is moving. So, what advice or recommendations would you have for people that have lots of fear holding them back still, or have a lot of limiting beliefs around changing? Um, yeah, so that they can actually take that step and move in a direction that really aligns with them.
Yeah, to really deeply listen and listen deeply to your heart, to your own heart. Your heart knows, like your heart's desire knows who you are and what you need to do. And then trust that, like your body knows, your heart knows, your soul knows what you need to do. Yeah, really trust deeper that, that you are your own expert, and stop looking and relying or depending on an external world to give you what you're supposed to change internally. It's not going to happen, you
Yeah,
know. Yeah, so when you start to really live into that and really trust your intuition and trust your faith in who you are, that exudes out in the world. You translate that in how you show up, and you just will shine so bright because no one else is you. And there is so much room available at the table, like everyone's so unique. Like we all think we have to fight each other and compete against each other for a seat at the table, but you don't, because everyone has just, there's so much uniqueness, and no matter that there's billions of people in the world, you still are you. Like you're the only you in this world, and the gifts that you have, the talent that you have, only you have. And even if there are 10 million people playing the guitar, no one plays it like you. And so I just really want, yeah, everyone to know that, to just really listen deeply, rest, that's where rest comes in, and then just really trust and take back your power in
yeah,
so many ways, on so many levels. Because, yeah, you are the expert of you. You're the expert of your children. Nobody cares about you more than yourself,
yeah,
and I think we give away so much of our power externally, believing that that's going to fix us or that's going to help us or change us. And that's not saying don't have support around you, because community support is so important. Find yourself a great community as well. That's probably my second tool. Find yourself a great community, but people that genuinely cheer you on, hold you up, pray for you, love on you, and really, are there for you, not competing with you, or not, and be okay to let the old things go and the old things pass away.
yeah,
And that might mean friendships, relationships, and be okay with that, because you need to just align with your truth.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's such beautiful advice. So, Jennifer, I want to take a little bit of a turn because on my journey, self love was probably the biggest thing that I had to learn. So, as an awakened feminine and, busy mama of how, I think you have 4 children.
I've got 7
Seven.
children.
Oh, seven. Oh, there you go. Busy mama of 7 children, not four,
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
um, and doing everything that you're doing, your writing, your speaking, your social activism. What are your top 3 go-to activities to really make sure that you give yourself the self-love that you deserve?
Yeah, I take a lot of rest. That's just going to keep coming up, I think. Just take a lot of rest. I do spend a lot of time in relationships. So I do spend a lot of time with community and other people, because that fills my heart, that fills my cup, and it does feel very that I'm taking this time to self-love myself, because loving on others helps me to love myself as well. So yeah, I do take a lot of time to rest, and when I'm talking about rest as well, like I completely turn off everything. So I'm off social media, off technology, off my phone. Like, that's big time self-love for me, or self-care. And also read. I read. Reading, because as a busy mum, these are little things, you take for granted, and I don't have a lot of time to do. So yeah, it's passion, self-love. Oh, and cleaning. I love to clean.
I don't think many people would think cleaning is a self-love, but it is, right?
Cleaning is a self-love for me. It's one of those weird, I think, self-loves, but yeah, mostly ironing, I think, is one of those ones I love to do.
Yeah.
That was a bit out there, but yeah, sorry.
Don't worry. I totally get the cleaning thing. I
Sorry,
totally get the cleaning thing.
Yeah. I love to get out in nature a lot as well.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. And cleaning is it's kind of out there, but not, because I think when you're a mom, or I'm a bit of a neat freak, so I totally get when you need to just go, all right, the house is like, I need to do this to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally right. You get it.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
So Jenna,
it's not the same. It's not in the same way. Before, when I used to clean, was more an anxiety thing.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that anymore, where I'm dependent on the cleaning for me to feel better about myself. It's kind of, I clean when I'm happy, like it brings me a lot of joy, and and put on music and I dance. So dancing while cleaning, if there's such a thing.
Yeah, definitely. I was folding laundry yesterday, and I'm like searching like folding clothes playlist and putting it on. So I totally get you. It's the same wavelength. Yeah. So Jennifer, before we wrap up, I would love to know what is setting your soul on fire right now.
I'd have to say the freedom movement is setting my soul on fire. People raising their voices and speaking their truth, that just sets my heart ablaze. I think for too long we've been silent about anything, really, and everything. And I'm a person that loves to have deep conversations. And so when I see and hear, not just mums, but women just taking back their power by raising their voices and speaking their truth, that just sets my heart on fire, like nothing does. And I've just been really privileged to see that happen time and time and time again in this last season. And so yeah, it's really empowering for myself to see that awakening, to see many people just really really alive. That's what I see as awakening.
Yeah, I love that. And I can tell from your energy that it's really something that really lights you up. So that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So thank you so much for sharing your love and wisdom with us today, Jennifer. If people want to find out more about you and what you do, and find out more about Freedom Keepers, where should they go?
Yeah, so to find out more about what I do, I'm on Instagram. My IG is RedeemHer Heart. I share a lot of my spiritual challenges there, my practice, my rhythms, and more of my story, and my book, of course, is on that platform as well. Freedom Keepers, you can go to Oz Freedom Keepers or Freedom Keepers United.
Beautiful. So
Or
I'll
on
have,
Instagram.
yeah, all on Instagram. Awesome. I'll have all your details and any recommended resource, also a link to your book as well, available in the show notes so people can reach out to you. So until next time, I love you, I believe in you, and you are worth taking that first step to the life of your dreams.